The story kicks off with Jang Chel Kim, an ordinary grad student who woke up yesterday inside the body of his favorite video game's demon king, Kratos, and after quickly dismissing the strange situation, he was interrupted by his loyal aide Zephos, who rushed in to announce that the army of roaring monsters was ready to charge into battle. Among the four great generals, the beastly level 534 warrior known as the Bloodrinker Akaroth gathers the army and shouts that their invasion will finally end the famine. Following the leader stands Ice Queen Cersei, an armored warrior from the Barren Lands who laments eating her own kind, but vows to leave that pain behind. While next the Mistborn Duke Hartok orders his troops to tear humans apart and crush elves, and finally the hulking tyrant Bahal roars for them all to be food, prompting the entire demon army to raise their weapons in a terrifying cheer before Demon King Kratos steps forward to calm his eager commanders. In a commanding voice, Kratos barks an order at all the demons. He declares that starting right now, they will stop attacking and wait, but then you wonder what? Bro went wild by ordering his entire monster army to grow crops instead of fighting. And honestly, he's completely crazy. The four generals instantly look furious and shocked, with one screaming that the order is crazy as they glare at each other's angry faces. Inside Kratos' mind, Jangsha is seized by a sudden, chilling fear, realizing everyone else is terrified, before he finally uncovers the hidden truth behind his strange command. If this is truly the start, a giant armored hero will soon wake up. A system alert flashes that the 20th round has started, introducing Kimchi for life, an absurdly powerful Jangsho who knows with total certainty that fighting him means certain death, and then flashes back to his dream of becoming a rich farmer, which led him to top his agriculture program at Hanguk University, only to realize that being the smartest student made him everyone's personal servant. His professors used him to write their papers, lead their teams, and even plow their fields while stealing all the credit, until he broke down from exhaustion and rage, screaming in his room with nothing left but a video game to save his mind. In the brutally hard game Paladins of Blood, where levels crawled painfully slow and no one had ever beaten it 19 times, Jinch traded his sleep for victory, grinding through wave after wave until he became the first human to conquer all 19 runs and feel like the ultimate gamer, knowing that the terrifying 20th run waited just beyond his reach. Glancing at his character screen, we see his player, Kim Gi for life, sitting at level 9,990, just 9 levels away from the max. And in a hilarious twist, his character is dressed up in a pink magical girl outfit complete with a heart-themed chest plate, a skirt, and a bow. With tired eyes and a quiet voice, he decides he's finally ready for round 20 after years of grinding. A new prompt suddenly flashes on the screen. He pressed yes, and a blinding flash from his screen ripped him into a blue spirit falling through the sky. Trying to keep his cool, he figured that since he was blue, that had to be his soul, which meant the fall wouldn't kill him. He looked down and saw the Tomb of the Paladins, a famous spot from the game. He was overjoyed to finally own his powerful character, Kimchi, and laughed wildly as his soul zoomed toward the sleeping hero in pink, only to stop dead when he realized he didn't want to be that guy, causing him to scream in panic as his soul was violently pulled toward the demon Lord Kratos instead. And now we return to the present, where Kratos sits on his throne, sighing over his bad luck and wishing he hadn't let a silly thought about outfit for Kimchi lead him to this weak demon lord's body. While Zephyros returns with the terrifying news that 4 generals saw Kratos' order to stop the invasion as a sign of weakness and have already plotted to kill him to steal his power. One general hesitated, warning that Kratos became king by killing his predecessor, so he might not be as weak as he seemed. They decided that once they had clear proof he was weak, killing him would be their only option. Zephyrus stands before Kratos to deliver a terrifying report about his army's despair and chaos, confirming that the 4 great generals are furious, believe he is weak, and are plotting to kill him because if he seems powerless, he is already doomed. He quickly decides that since his soul isn't inside him, the hero's body is just a hollow shell, making a brief dash into the human world a possible plan. But then Zephyrus mentions a video from General Agma, showing how Kimchi for life brutally beat up Kratos' demons, gouging out one's screaming eyes, which makes Kratos sweat in horror and decide that his only way out of this nightmare is to stop the food shortage by cooking up demons. Zephyrus asks where he is going, and Kratos, pretending to be polite and forgetting his true nature, replies that he was just looking for a piece of land to farm. Zephyrus stares in confusion at the polite word pardon, then launches into a lecture claiming the demon lord should be arrogant and rude, which leaves Kratos baffled and wondering if Zephyrus is playing a trick, especially when he imagines the villain saying, "Pardon me," while his own generals plot his death. A moment that recalls why Zephyrus was once a fan favorite for appearing right before the final battle to reveal the boss wanted to stop fighting, only to be killed anyway, ending with his dying apology to his lord for failing to protect him, which made players think he was incredibly loyal. Back in the present, Zephyrus keeps nagging Kratos about his big mistake, which just makes Kratos feel super annoyed. Zephyrus mocks Kratos for wanting to farm in the demon lands, but Kratos defiantly grabs a handful of dirt and eats it, proving that even if he hates farming, he must do it to survive, while Zephyrus dutifully writes down every strange thing he sees. After spitting the dirt out and noting its lack of nitrogen, Kratos realizes he must find a natural way to break the strong bonds in the air to feed the plants, since he has no tools to do it chemically. He realizes the lightning is turning air into soil fertilizer, so he remembers Kratos' deadly bloody strike, move, and tells a confused Zephyrus to step back as he cuts his own hand with his claws, screaming in pain from a detail gamers never consider, making the four generals watching from behind a tree whisper that he must have grown weak. Even Zephyrus looks over and bluntly states that Kratos is 100% weaker. So cornered, Kratos thinks his ally must be an assassin trying to get him killed, but deciding this is still better than dying, he grits his teeth and resolves to go through with it, powering through the pain to unleash the full force of a bloody strike. And after the attack, Kratos stands there, his hand dripping blood onto the barren ground while panting from the exertion and pain, only for his moment of recovery to be cut short as he sees the four generals stepping out from their hiding spot, with one asking if he is unwell before they advance on him with grim and menacing faces. Kratos knows he's in serious trouble, and the scene suddenly jumps to a bright green world where the hero, Kimchi for life, is now just a regular person who remembers a past life and follows a mysterious destiny. Now that feeling is gone. The hand of fate has stopped speaking, and the level 999X hero looks out at the world, raises his head, and steps into an unknown future while wondering what a guy like him will do next. From mighty generals, led by the fierce Asura, march toward the demon lord Kratos, reminding everyone that the demon king must always be the strongest, a fact that made Kratos' heart race with fear. Kratos froze in fear, his body shaking so violently that Asura wrongly assumed he was gathering power before the fight, while smirking at the idea that a weakened demon lord could beat them all, only for Kratos to realize the other three generals were just hiding behind a tree and watching to see if they should join the brawl. Asura shouted that they were cowards. One general calmly explained that they are demons, and this is exactly what should be expected. But suddenly Zephyrus appeared to announce that demon tradition demands all fights be broadcast live with no chance to back out. So he waved his hand to project the battle to a roaring crowd of demons while even acting as a hype man by telling Asura not to worry, because Kratos is weak, proving that Zephyrus is just trolling as usual. With all eyes on him, Asura jumped forward to strike. Kratos was panicking and wondering what to do, remembering that while he was strong, his power wasn't quite as amazing as he had hoped. As the attack landed, he knew the move from the game was either a thrust or a slash, and he thought there was no way to dodge it. But then his body moved on its own, twisting just in time to dodge the giant blade. Bro, that was way too close. Kos froze in shock as a gamer's instinct kicked in, recalling how the attacker's foot turned outward before the next thrust was always coming. He realized the enemy was moving exactly like in the game, so he felt like he was on autopilot, while the other generals, watching from the shadows, thought he was about to rip off Asurath's arm, but held back just to keep watching. As Asurath hammered on, without stopping, Kratos danced away perfectly, his mind replaying how he'd once been totally stuck by this fast, tricky boss while playing Paladins of Blood. Bro, I almost rage quit 128 times, he thought, because by his 19th playthrough he had mastered the fight to a no-hit run, so he grinned and dodged every swing with the confidence that none of Asurath's attacks would ever land, while the watching generals were shocked and thought the Demon Lord was just having fun by laughing at how weak Asurath was. Filled with rage, he kept striking at nothing but the air. Suddenly, a blue pop-up window appeared before him, just like in a webcomic, congratulating him on mastering the world's rules and dodging attacks with sharp focus, proving that game mechanics really do work in real life. As a reward, it told him that parts of the game system were now unlocked for him. Now the aiming tool was ready to use. A green crosshair snapped onto Asurath, telling Kos he could finally use his special power, so he slashed his hand and unleashed his ultimate move, the Bloody Strike, which hit Asurath square in the chest and blew out a huge burst of red and yellow energy. The other generals and Zephyrus cheered, certain their lord's power was unstoppable, but once the smoke settled, they saw Asurath kneeling, bruised and battered yet very much alive, leaving Kratos shocked as he recalled that Asurath would bounce back to full strength in no time at all. To stop the fight, he kept hitting the downed general with fresh, bloody strikes, knowing the lighter blows would just hurt and never kill him. Until after a storm of attacks, Asura lay twitching on the ground with his clothes torn to shreds. The message kept going to say that a brand new system had been unlocked, letting you add or take off armor. He checked his supplies and found only the plain armor he was already wearing, so he decided to leave it alone for now. Standing over the fallen Asaroth, he knew his strength had failed him and that the general's healing would soon bring the enemy back to fight. But then a thought hit him. Bro, I can actually use him to farm. Even though he couldn't kill the target, he could keep hitting him with deadly strikes to turn the man into a living lightning rod that would flood the ground with nitrogen for farming. Believing himself a genius, he turned to the trembling generals and ordered the Ice Queen, Circe, to tie up the naked Aesirith. Circe turned red in the face, convinced they were setting a trap to make her and Aesirith look foolish. The plan began, and Asurath was bound to a tall wooden cross to catch the lightning. He bounced back fast and screamed that Kratos had gotten weak because he couldn't even kill him. Ko silenced his opponent with a fresh, bloody strike, then muttered that the hit was turning nitrogen into nitrous acid, before ordering the Mistborn Dukehark to blanket the area in a fog so thick it was dripping wet. The generals were terrified, thinking this was a cruel new way to make the lightning strike hurt even more. Hard to follow, the mixture formed a thick, wet fog that let Kratos rain bloody blows down on the soaked Aesirath. And even as the skill hurt him, he laughed madly at the rich soil and the promising harvest ahead. After the fierce battle, he checked the muddy, nitrogen-rich dirt and declared it ready, then called for manure to fix its clumpy, oxygen-poor texture into light, fluffy soil perfect for farming, ordering the 3 terrified, sweat-soaked generals to bring him some. They could only stare in horror, wondering how cruel their lord must be to fry a man and then plan to cover him in poop. After all that chaos, Bro felt strangely normal as he strolled through a quiet green forest where the air was calm, birds were chirping, and sunlight filtered through the leaves. Suddenly, he heard a voice begging for help and turned to see 2 men, one hurt and barely standing, explaining that goblins had attacked them and offering a reward if he would save them. Kimchi for Life watched them in silence, his face as calm as a still pond. At first, the men were scared of Kimchi for Life's strange magical girl look, thinking he looked like something from a horror story, but his calm aura put them at ease as he simply told them he wasn't suspicious. Seeing a man with a broken leg, Kimchi for Life easily scooped him up and carried him like a princess. The man gasped in shock at his own power, telling his friend, "Bro, this guy is seriously OP," and asked him to lead the way as they walked, with the injured man introducing himself as Riav Ezron, an envoy, and his companion as Dialfruna, while still amazed by his new strength, asking who their savior was only to be told that even the mysterious figure didn't know his own name, leaving Kimchi for Life to silently wonder why he could no longer rely on memories of past lives to guide him. Inside the Demon Lord's castle, the 3 generals Hardtalk, Circe, and Bahal stood there looking completely defeated, with Hardtalk wondering out loud how they were supposed to bring the Demon Lord feces and if they were expected to make it themselves, which made Circe blush furiously and scream that the Demon King had clearly lost his mind by giving them such a filthy and disgusting order. The simple-minded Bahal admitted he couldn't share any poop because he hadn't eaten in a while, and Circe quickly agreed that she was in the same spot. Hardtalk, the ultimate schemer, suggested we just kidnap a few weak demons to make them do all the dirty work, but nah, that's just too cruel even for a demon. The scene shifted to a lonely demon village where the generals put Heart's plan into action, causing a starving demon to beg them to stop because he couldn't poop in front of everyone, and since he had no food, he pointed out there was nothing left to excrete, which sparked a sudden idea in Hardtalk. He lunged forward and wrapped his hands around the demon's neck. Dark energy surged from the victim in a heart case hand, and I had to admit, things were getting too dark even for me. Just as Hardtalk was about to drain the demon's life, Bahal grabbed his arm and stopped him, explaining that killing the demon would stop the poop from coming out and make their mission fail, which left Hardtalk stunned for a moment. After Circe suggested feeding a captive to their enemies just to make them poop, the generals got ready to fight, with one joking that it was turning into a poop war, until a flash of red lightning from Demon Lord Kratos knocked them apart as he angrily scolded them for thinking only poop would work, only to reveal he needed good poop to make compost, leaving everyone confused since they'd never heard of such a thing before. Kratos taught them how to grow food by mixing tree ash, weeds, dirt, eggshells, and chicken poop into the soil, joking that he was turning waste into a superpower, but finding the eggshells and dung was the tough part since the houses were empty. Just then, a brilliant idea struck him, so he called out for Zephyro and asked for a map of the land. Spreading the map out, He confirmed it matched the game perfectly and excitedly pointed to a remote coastal spot, declaring it a goldmine of ingredients since the game showed demon seagulls using those cliffs to lay eggs and drop their waste. Zephos warned him that the place, known as the Cliffs of No Return, was so unstable with rough waves below that anyone who fell died. Yet Kratos calmly replied that he knew the secret to climbing the deadly ledge where many demons had perished, turning what looked like a suicide mission into a reachable goal. The group reached the huge, dangerous cliffs by the churning sea. The generals and Zephos stared in shock while Kratos explained his crazy plan to climb the steep cliff, collect the eggs and droppings, and toss them down for the others to catch. Determined to save his friend from hunger, he pushed forward with his crazy egg and poop farming plan, promising them that if it worked, everyone would finally get a full meal. Bahal thought of the hungry demon kids and looked at his master with fresh determination. Suddenly remembering a time when he once climbed this same cliff hundreds of times and failed again and again until he found a secret trick, Kratos dove toward the rock, stripped off all his armor and weapons to the horror of his followers below, and began his naked, glitchy climb, only to get stuck in a weird pose and panic when he realized everyone was watching his embarrassing tumble. After quickly fixing his armor, which glitched into pieces before snapping back together on the cliff, Kratos reached the top to prove the game's strange rules were real, just as Bahal, inspired by the Demon King's promise to feed his people, decided he had to help. He said he'd follow Kratos and began to climb the cliff. Zephyros tried to stop him, but it was too late as Kratos, having just re-equipped his armor, looked down in shock and yelled at Bahal, asking what he was doing. The cliff gave way under Bahal's weight, sending him plummeting, so Kratos dove after him, caught him midair, and felt his arm nearly snap under the general's heavy grip. But as pain surged through him and doubt crept in, a memory of a former student begging for help with a stubborn professor suddenly reminded him why he couldn't just let go. Jiang Cho walked away coldly, leaving the student to cry, and that heavy regret made Kratos roar with strength to throw Bahal over the cliff, dislocating his arm in the process. But he caught himself on the landing to survive the near-fatal fall. Lying on the ground and gasping in pain, Kratos watched as the stunned General Bahal cried tears of gratitude, realizing the demon lord had sacrificed everything for a reason deeper than any blade. Kratos told him that hurting the people he left behind felt worse than any physical pain, proving that doing right can be heavier than steel, all while a system window popped up to reward him with a new system for earning sincere thanks. He earned happiness points by feeding his army until they were full and content. Demon Lord Kratos stared at the glowing new system and chuckled, comparing it to a supermarket loyalty card, only to learn there were no grocery stores here, just a simple rule. Feed your army to earn points for power. Despite having barely 20% of his strength and no stamina to upgrade his skills, the promise of growing stronger made his eyes shine with a manic grin, which terrified Bahal below, who wrongly assumed it was a cruel promise of future repayment. Standing on a cliff's edge, Kratos yelled out a crazy new plan to drop eggshells filled with seagull poop on the target below. The generals and Zephos looked up in horror as he screamed for them to grab the flying objects. Moments later, a gross shower of rainbow poop-filled eggshells exploded over them, turning the area into a chaotic, smelling mess. After the mess, Kratos clapped his hands and declared it time to get serious about farming. So he began explaining how to make compost by mixing seagull poop, eggshells, tree ash, and soil, and he assigned Circe to handle the grinding and mixing, but the Ice Queen, with her multiple blade-like arms twitching, shouted furiously that she was not created to dice feces. Kratos glanced at the crucified Akarath and quietly told Circe she could always swap places with him, leaving everyone silent as Circe gulped and frantically chopped and mixed ingredients as if her life depended on it, while he watched her work, knowing he couldn't relax around these short-tempered generals but had to push forward with nothing but guts and determination. Step 2 was to spray the mixture with water, so Kratos ordered Hardtalk to fly up and make fog, even though Hardtalk complained the moisture would make everything smell worse. But one look from Kratos toward the still crucified Akarath was enough. Hardtalk instantly listened and brought forth a thick, foul-smelling fog. Step 3 was to gather the compost and cover it with seagull feathers, which Bahal showed how to do. But as Kratos looked across the huge field, he noticed something very wrong. They didn't have enough feathers, so making enough compost this way would take forever. He realized he needed far more demons to help, so he used all his power as the Demon King to make it happen. The view changed to a tiny, dark hut under the cover of night. A skinny demon named Drox sat by the bed of his sick daughter, Flute. The skinny girl looked up and whispered softly, "Dad, you should eat me," which made Drox's eyes go wide with shock. He yelled at her, his voice trembling with rage and terror as his mind flashed back to the nightmare where his starving wife had gone mad, and he, driven insane by hunger, had become a monster that ate her while she tried to shield their daughter, Flute. He had collapsed, hollow and lost, until the hut door burst open to reveal Kratos, Baal, and Zephus, shattering his despair. Kratos noticed Drak still had the strength to shout, so he ordered him taken away immediately. Drak screamed for his daughter's safety, terrified she would be eaten without him, but no one answered as they dragged him away. Zephus said they had already caught 20 demons but still needed 30 more, and Kratos remembered a time when a hero killed a demon girl like a flute and stole her heart. He told his royal guards to watch out for cannibals and ordered Zephyrus to recruit more demons to help with composting. This was the Demon King's rule, a harsh but necessary grip on the land. As the days went by, the captured demons worked without rest under the burning sun. Drak grumbled to a fellow worker that farming was pointless since they didn't even have any seeds to plant. Kratos calmly told them what they'd plant, then led them to the general's old hiding spot and showed them a small purple flower. Drak turned pale and warned that the roots were poisonous, but Kratos ignored the fear, pulled the plant from the earth to show the tubers, and coldly announced they were already testing it on Drak's own daughter. Drak's heart sank as he raced home, screaming at Flute not to eat it. Suddenly crashing into the hut, he saw her sitting up, joyfully biting into pieces of the cooked root. She beamed with delight, feeling perfectly full, and shared that Zephyrus and Baal had given her exactly the same meal yesterday. Kratos then told the story of the plant, explaining how people once removed its poison to end hunger and called it potato. Drak dropped to his knees, weeping as he thanked the demon lord for saving his child, while a glowing window suddenly popped up before Kratos, announcing that part of his army had found joy and awarding him 1 happiness point. Kratos looked at the last hit point and then saw Flute's happy smile. He thought of all the starving demons and realized for the first time that even a demon king could care. He whispered that kids need to eat right to grow strong. A real smile spread across his face. The generals saw that smile and shuddered, whispering among themselves that their lord was just fattening her up to eat her later. In Chavandur, the demon king's innermost province, the days are scorching and the nights are freezing cold. Kratos pauses and admits that this area is brutally harsh, just like the Andean highlands where humans once starved and even ate poisonous wild potatoes to survive. But humans are clever, always finding a way to turn deadly food into something we can eat. Out in the fields, a demon from the farming team reports that every single potato has been laid out to dry. Kratos roars at Baal to stomp the potatoes flat, then calmly explains how 5 days of freezing and thawing, followed by stomping to squeeze out the poison, drying and roasting them turns them into safe, edible tunno, proving this guy truly thought of everything. Once the batch is ready, Kratos calls the demons over for a snack, but he warns them to eat only 2 each. With only a single demon hesitating over a giant pile of raw potatoes and wondering why they aren't making more, Kratos explains that they must plant the rest so the harvest can grow 100 or even 1,000 times bigger. The demons whisper nervously, haunted by memories of poisoned roots that killed their kin, but Dronzer tries to calm them by saying his daughter, Flute, ate the potatoes and is fine, while another demon glares at Kratos' scary grin and whispers that it's suspicious, wondering if Kratos is just testing them or enjoying their pain. Kratos impatiently shouts for them to eat, and Dronzer, tired of their fear, shoves 2 chewnos into the doubters' mouths, causing one to chew nervously, swallow, then suddenly go wide-eyed and tearfully shout, "Long live the Demon King," which makes the rest of the starving demons immediately devour their food with joy. As they start to realize that Kratos truly provided them with food, he watches their joy and jokes that it sounds like a catchy ad slogan, while Zephyrus quietly admires Kratos' calm confidence, wondering if he can really end the famine, right before a system window pops up to show the soldiers' happiness and award Kratos 50 points. His total jumps to 51, and he's thrilled. Finally, he saw progress as he realized he'd earned enough points to grow a bit stronger. After checking his stats and hesitating to spend, Kratos sees his Chuno farming succeed, so he organizes a team to spread the news of growing food across the villages and gives out special vouchers that demons can trade for Chuno if they help dig up wild potatoes. The plan works, and soon the villagers eagerly join the harvest. Chaos becomes useful as some cook Chunos to eat, while the generals keep making compost. Kratos takes charge of fertilizing, plants Astaroth's crucifix in place, and then blasts him with a bloody strike to pump out more nitrogen. Bro, you're still using that poor guy to farm, which is savage, but now a problem has popped up. The field is far too vast for their small crew to mix the compost without help. So Kratos sits with Zephyro, frustrated, and asks if messengers were sent to other provinces for support. Zephyr says the message was sent, but it's still silent with no answer coming back. Kratos sighs to himself, knowing that feeding an entire army alone will leave him exhausted. While deep in the ravines of the damned, Sartle reads a scout report and sees Kratos' efforts to grow food as a personal attack, even though Kratos is just trying to use his power to end the war and stop the hunger. Sar, who gets stronger by eating demon souls, decides to make every demon starve so he can feast on them all and become the new demon king. He gives the order to Famir to wipe out everything connected to Kratos' farming experiment. Under the moonlit fields, a cloaked figure named Famir scolds the crucified Asura for his master Kratos, leaving him dying, only to offer him a chance at life once the general is gone. Famir calls upon wraiths to curse the earth and turn the field into a barren wasteland. Fikamer grabs the huge piles of compost, laughs at his ghosts as they spread it deep into the dirt to ruin the farm, and thinks this is the perfect way to stop Kratos from ever gathering it again. Still, Surarath stays tied to the cross, watching everything unfold. He's so confused because he remembers Kratos saying the next step was to mix compost into the dirt, which was going to be a really tough job. The funny twist is that the enemies aren't destroying the farm at all. They're actually helping Kratos by doing the hardest work for him. So while Fikamer laughs, thinking he's winning, he's actually preparing the field perfectly for planting. Asurath watched as his wraiths worked hard to undo Kratos' labor, with one particularly diligent wraith, named 2718, prompting a friend to wonder why he was trying so hard. 2718 shrugged and admitted he didn't know, yet staring at the ruined fields, a strange pride swelled in his chest that made another wraith join him in the chaos with renewed energy until they were so lost in their work that they didn't notice the morning sun was rising to kill them. One of them sighed, well, it was worth it, as the rising sun melted them away until nothing remained. Famir held his umbrella high against the heat, watched his army fade, and whispered, "Rest in peace, my minions," before turning his curious gaze to wait and see how Kratos would react. At the same time, Kratos and Zephos stood in a shed piled high with the potatoes they had just gathered. Kratos explained that while the field took time to dig, the next job would be just as long, noting that the potatoes were sleeping peacefully until they were yanked out by their hair, fainting from shock, and sharing his trick of breaking their sleep by keeping them cold before moving them to a dark, warm spot. He thought about asking Circe for help with her ice powers, but she was still too angry to agree. Hard talk seemed like a danger waiting to happen, so he stayed away, and even his plan to get the farm workers warm by making them do squats didn't work. They got tired way too fast. Bro, really thinking that trick would work? Kratos wasn't beaten, so he went with Zephyros to the fields to add nitrogen to the soil, but when they arrived, they were shocked. The earth had been turned over so smooth, it looked like a perfect blanket ready for planting. The rotten smell was overwhelming, but Kratos just laughed in disbelief as Bahal suddenly appeared, dragging a struggling farmer who looked terrifyingly like a boss from the game Ravines of the Damned. Zephyros asked why Fikamer was there, but Kratos punched him before he could finish. Zephos blinked in surprise as Kratos calmly explained that striking first at a suspicious person was the smarter move, earning nods of approval from the hall before they relentlessly beat Fikamer until he confessed that Sar had ordered him to ruin the fields just to starve Kratos' army. Back in the throne room, Kratos revealed that Sarol, the leader of the first province, had refused to send help, and he remembered that Sarol grew stronger by feeding on the souls of desperate demons. Zephyros saw a chance to strike Sar, sending a clear warning to anyone who dared break the peace. Kratos agreed and began to think through the problem with a strategist's mind. So was a ghostly figure who was hard to catch, making his land dangerous and this whole thing very tricky. Kratos figured that if the creature was too tough to grab at its nest, he'd have to trick it into coming out. Later, Little Flute slowly crept toward the crucified General Ashurith, who growled at her as she nervously explained that they had food only because of his sacrifice. She bent down low and said her thanks. Ashurith, torn between pride and shame, let out a terrible roar, vowing to devour her and promising to kill her the moment he was free. Flute began to cry because of his loud yelling. Suddenly, a crowd of demons showed up carrying a new cross and banner to officially start the lightning rod, celebrating with Kratos by tying a captured Fikamer to it. Ashura's eyes went wide with hope of freedom, but Kratos grinned and crushed that dream by revealing he had turned them both into lightning rods, then struck down both Ashurith and Famir with a double blast of electricity. Far away in his province, Lord Sar screamed in agony as he felt his servant being tortured, and he knew he had to help. With a furious roar, Kratos unleashes his bloody strike on his lightning brothers Azeroth and Fikamer. While far away, Lord Sartle screams in agony as he feels their pain through the magic, But Kratos spots Sartle's bird watching him, sparks of rage igniting in his eyes as he declares, "Bro, he's watching? Not on my farm," and vows to make Sartle regret messing with his crops. Later in the fields, little Flute digs at the dirt with a small shovel, catching the eye of the chained Azeroth, who scoffs at her attempt to help as he claims he alone did the hard work of plowing. Flute thanks him sincerely for his hard work and for being their lightning rod. And Famer is so moved that he realizes his own suffering might finally have a purpose. Azeroth shakes his head, muttering that Azerat has lost her mind since the soil won't grow potatoes and everyone will starve anyway. But Fakamer accidentally reveals that warming the storehouse will make them sprout. So Flute thanks him with a smirk and runs to the storehouse, while Azeroth yells after her. As the massive, frustrated Azeroth glared at the lowly underling, back in the throne room, Zephos worried that Sar wouldn't fall for the trap and wouldn't try to rescue Kratos on his own. Kratos calmly admits that Sar won't come himself, so he'll send underlings first to draw Serral out of the ravines, demanding that every single one of those minions be killed, while Bahal stands ready with the farming corps and their weapons, waiting for the fight to begin. Back in the ravines of the damned, Serral mocks the scout's warning and dismisses Fakamer's death, ordering ghostly fish minions to destroy every potato, only for them to find the storehouse empty while Kratos waits with his own secret weapon. Blood on the floor that he electrifies to zap the leaders and roar for the farming corps to strike. Thin demons burst in with farming tools to smash the stunned soul leaders. Kratos whispered that these weak-looking demons were actually top-tier monsters from the final map who could easily crush ghosts, and watching his team tear them apart gave him a cold, satisfying thrill. He could truly be a brilliant and ruthless demon king ruling this world, while some soul leaders managed to escape. Kratos steps forward to handle the situation himself, only to spot a tiny Flute perched atop the giant pile of potatoes. A soul leader lunges at her, but Dirk steps in to intercept the attack and protect his daughter. Kratos is fed up because that last soul leader is too far away to attack. Suddenly, a potato zooms through the air and hits the creature right on the head, turning it into a puddle, while another glowing pink potato bounces off a pile of potatoes and turns into a spiky red fruit. Kratos can't figure it out as the last soul eaters fly into the storehouse, pulled by something unseen. And when he looks closer, he sees a single potato has started to grow. The moment the potato finally sprouts thanks to the soul eater's growing power, he joyfully flies down to scoop up the terrified Flute and thank her. Standing atop a hill of sprouted potatoes, the leader grins evilly and tells his army to forget luring Sartale and start invading instead, while the crucified Asurth drifts away into an existential crisis. He ponders his own identity and purpose, finding a strange, quiet beauty in the rising sun while standing on a cross with deep thoughts, until his rumbling stomach reminds him that life still pulses within him before little Flute runs overexcitedly to tell him that thanks to his advice about potato sprouts, everything turned out perfectly. And she even got a huge pile of chunos as a reward after Lord Kratos took the farming corps to do the work. With hunger driving Asurus wild, Flute tries to feed him hard snacks, but accidentally hits him in the face with a chunk, only for him to finally eat a few and realize they taste amazing, while Kratos watches happily gain points and health as his demons feast and his new recruits work hard. He quickly shrugs off the mystery of the last point, knowing he must save up for Sarto's attack. So with his army ready, Kratos sends the farming corps forward with a cry for a full harvest, only for Sarto's minions to cut the rope bridge and laugh as Kos leaps across, sheds his armor to stick his but to the cliff in a hilarious glitch, and re-armors himself before ordering his generals to follow the plan. Bahal and Zephos give a quick nod to show they get it. Kratos dashes into the dark cave with nothing but his bare hands, trusting his gamer instincts to turn the ghost fear of potatoes into a trap that makes them swarm him instead of letting him fight alone. Kratos charges through the cave walls and enemies like a ghost, leaving them completely confused, which shocks the soul leaders since he figured out every hidden path from playing the game 19 times before. Kratos drags the ghosts into a huge cave, and as they catch their breath, the ghost bosses think they've finally trapped him and worn him out. Kratos smirks and declares he's neither a demon king nor just a veteran, but a farmer, then signals Zephyros to lead the farming corps through a secret shortcut, blasting the cavern with sprouting potatoes. The ghost gets stuck in a swirling mess of aging potatoes as Kratos, remembering his old playthroughs, tells Zephos to use a forgotten tunnel to sneak him to the spot where he first faced Sar. He searched for a special potion to change his look, and while the potato farmers celebrated their crop, a memory of his grandmother worrying about his safety pushed Kratos to keep going, leading him to declare that anyone who steals another's food deserves a beating. And even though Bahal promised to help in the fight, Kratos told him his only job was to carry the potatoes, calling it a top-level task. Far off, Cyril holds a sacred ceremony to ask the ice spirit for help. Right as he's talking, Kratos breaks through the roof of his holy place. Cyril is shocked and demands to know how Kratos found him, but Kratos simply replies, "None of your business. It's extermination time." Then, in the next scene, Kratos confronts the ghostly Lord Sar in his inner sanctum, where Sar mocks him for coming alone, yet Kratos calmly states that he has already faced Sar's true power 19 times in the game. He recounts the entire boss battle progression from memory, explaining that after the player exterminates all of Sar's underlings throughout the ravines, Cyril retreats to this final room containing the heart of the Ice Spirit, a terrifying artifact created from an ancient dragon's life. Before Sar can summon more minions, the final battle begins, revealing his ultimate ability, a copy skill. Sar creates a perfect clone of Kratos, replicating his stats and skills exactly. Kratos instantly spots Sar's error as the Demon King's clone charges, but Kratos upgrades his strength and speed with happiness points to dodge the punch and melt the clone into goo, only for it to reform into a terrifying ancient dragon that scares Sar into suggesting a deal while Kratos reveals his secret army, led by Bahal. Enraged by Cyril's interference in their farming, the core swarms the dragon and beats him with tools while chanting a full harvest, causing him to desperately beg for mercy. But as Kratos watches and realizes he might not have had the heart to kill the dragon himself, he activates a new skill that summons a massive farming tool throne to crush the dragon and end the fight. The farming group cheers wildly, praising Kratos for his brutality, and he joins in the victory. Back in the fields, Asura shields the empty cross above Fikamer as the servant's spirit floats away peacefully, and with Cyril defeated and the pests gone, Kratos shouts that it is finally time to plant the potatoes. A system window pops up to tell him he's beaten Cyril for the 20th time and unlocked a secret event. And as the Ice Spirit's heart cracks open like a box, a tiny, adorable baby dragon tumbles out to chirp happily at Kratos. A brand new baby dragon hops all over Kratos, shouting "Daddy," while he stands frozen, staring at the tiny beast in total shock. The little dragon happily shares how it was scared in the dark until its dad arrived, but Kratos' forced smile just looks scary and makes the baby freeze in fear while whispering "Dad, Daddy," while the farming crew loudly demands to eat the new potatoes. Kratos' face hardens, and he shouts angrily for everyone to stop, promising that there will be plenty to eat once the potatoes are ready. The baby dragon gets so scared by his loud outburst that it hides in his arms, whimpering and wondering if he's going to eat it instead. Soon, the farming crew march back to the village in a joyful parade, where families reunited in laughter, and Drak happily hugged his daughter Flute to celebrate their hard work bringing the potato sprouts to life. The little dragon, cozy in Kratos' arms, starts to think the happy demons aren't scary until Kos flashes a huge, monstrous grin that makes the tiny dragon shake with fear again. Later, in a quiet room, the baby dragon sleeps soundly while Kratos watches over it, too tired to move, and he wonders how to feed it gems when there are none in the demon lands, until Zephos walks in with bad news that the planting they're trying to make is failing, making Kratos sigh deeply. He says that making furrows is easy to understand, but when the ground is packed with rocks, it becomes impossible to do. The camera cuts to the farming course struggling outside, where their pickaxe snaps against the hard ground while rocks are scattered everywhere. The baby dragon watches them and worries they're slaves, so it fears it might have to work too. Kos grumbles that the field looks more like a coal mine than farmland and worries they'll run out of chunos before clearing the rocks. So he jokes about wishing for a wombat to dig for him, like in another comic. But when he sees Flute quietly digging with her tiny shovel, his frustration melts away as her determination reignites his own, just as a terrifying storm suddenly breaks. A huge blade of wind whips across the plains like a massive tornado. Kos's face falls as he curses, remembering the random trap from the game, and yells for everyone to hide behind the rocks. As the air pressure spikes and the ground trembles, the demons scramble for safety, but Kratos notices Flute running straight at the crucified Ozrith instead of away from the storm, causing her father Drak to scream her name in horror before Kratos groans in annoyance, shoves the baby dragon into Drak's arms, and orders him to protect it. He shouts at everyone else to stand back. Bathel worries it's too risky, but Kratos shuts him down, reminding him he can't afford to lose his lightning rod or his worker, because farming here isn't a quiet hobby, it's war, so he runs straight into the storm. Winds tear at his body as he shouts for Flute to run before throwing himself into the cross to shield Ozrith. But even as the wind slices him and the ropes refuse to break, he snaps a restraint at the last second to block falling debris and save her. Kratos, wounded and barely on his feet, dragged Flute and the heavy cross with Ozath still attached out of the storm's fury before finally collapsing. The baby dragon watches from afar with wide, amazed eyes. Realizing its dad isn't strong enough, the little dragon still risks everything to protect others and leaps into action. It spreads its wings and dives straight into the swirling storm, shouting that its father is a good one, then lets out a loud cry to blast the tornado with a huge wave of ice that forces the swirling wind to slow down and rise up. Kratos stares in shock while the little dragon tries to bring the storm to a stop. Kratos lies still in his bed, healing from his fight with the blade, while the generals Hardtalk and Cersei sneak quietly into his room. Hardtalk suggests that now that the Demon King is vulnerable, we should chop off his head. He plans to wipe out the fools behind him. Cersei nods to the plan, and as they creep into the room to strike the sleeping king, they freeze suddenly. Kratos lies in bed with wide, blank eyes staring up at the ceiling, freezing the two assassins in their tracks. Hardtalk thinks Kratos was waiting for them and finds it creepy, but he decides this is their only chance and prepares to attack until Bahal and Aesroth burst through the door to warn them that the Demon King is sleeping and must not be woken. Hardtalk and Cersei stare in shock at the Demon King's wide eyes, but Bahal calmly calls it his sleeping face and warns them not to wake him up or he'll get angry, leaving Hardtalk confused about why Akaroth is helping the terrifying Lord Farm instead. Oscar says he isn't truly on Kratos' side. He's paying back the favor of being saved and promises to join their side next time. Cersei claims the farm will fail and everyone will starve, but Oz just smiles, knowing that to avoid hunger, one must risk their life, and while he'd rather fight, this will have to do for now, words that hit home so hard that even Hardtalk falls silent before cursing them as fools and letting the pair slip away, leaving Kratos to wake up later in great pain. He spots Astaroth and Bahal in his room and wonders why the lightning rod is wandering about. Akaroth calmly insists he's just paying his debt, but Chuckles laughs and calls it wrong. So an annoyed Kratos instantly zaps him with a bloody strike to remind him of his place before shouting that there's no time to waste and that they must get all the rocks out of the fields. Bahal tells him that the rocks are nearly all gone. Confused and wondering how it could already be that late, Kos asks what's happening until Zephyros suddenly appears and points right outside. Kos stares at the wide, rock-free field with neat rows waiting for crops, then asks Zephos how it was done, and Zephos just points to a tiny dot far away. That's the baby dragon, Kibon. The little dragon munches on every rock in the field, thinking to itself that it must keep eating until it's big and strong enough to stop the fierce blade winds. Kos is so delighted that he shouts for T-Bong to fly into his arms, and suddenly he has a way to beat the blade winds. With T-Bong soaring above to cool the air and stop the tornadoes, the field is ready, so while Zephus worries about paying workers with Chunos, Kratos insists they ignore money after a disaster because a farmer's second greatest enemy is fear, proving even a demon king can share wise farming lessons. The scene moves to Cersei's room, where she complains about the smell of farm work on her armor, but Kratos bursts in by phasing his legs right through the door, only for her to realize he needs her to help him cut a giant pile of potatoes for planting, instantly shattering her romantic hopes and ending the episode.